It's the star that holds both the antidote and the venom in the exact same vial. It represents the suffocating embrace of a constrictor snake, but at the same time, it's also the fierce, divine protection of a mother who just refuses to let go.
The ultimate paradox.
It really is. And it asks this terrifying question: how can the poison also be the cure?
And why do we have to churn up all the toxins from the bottom of the ocean just to find that one drop of nectar?
That's the work.
It's the paradox of the serpent. It has to shed its skin to survive, but it clings to its prey to eat. It is that boundary between the deepest emotional water and the fiercest spiritual fire.
Listen to that rain on the window. It's really coming down. It feels appropriate for where we're going today.
It does.
So welcome back to the library, Cafe Karma. The coffee today is, I think it's a Sumatran blend. It's very earthy, heavy, and time. Well, time feels like it's slowed down just enough for us to really think.
Good, because we need it.
We're opening the dossier on the 9th Nakshatra today, the star known as Jalay.
Jalay, the clinging star.
And just looking at the astronomy, we are in deep water. It's located entirely within the sign of Cancer.
Every last bit of it. From 16 degrees, 40 minutes, to the absolute end. 30 degrees.
The very end.
Yeah.
And that position is, you say, deceptive.
It is, because when you look up at the night sky, you're not looking for some single bright star. You're looking for a ring of them. Epsilon, Delta, Mu, Rho, Sigma, and Zeta Hydrae.
They form the head of the Hydra.
They form the head of the Hydra, yes.
The Hydra from Greek mythology. The water snake, where if you cut off one head, 2 more grow back.
The very same. So that idea of multiplicity, of regeneration through trauma is baked right into the astronomy.
Okay.
But the placement is even more critical. Ashlesha marks the absolute end of a cycle. It's at the very edge of the water sign Cancer, right before the fire of Leo begins. And in Vedic astrology, this boundary has a name. It's called the Gandanta.
I've heard that term. It's usually spoken with a bit of dread.
It is. It translates roughly to a spiritual knot, or even a drowning point.
A drowning point.
Think about the physics of it. You have the deep oceanic water of Cancer meeting the blazing solar fire of Leo. What happens when water hits a massive fire?
You get steam. You get pressure. It's volatile.
Exactly. It's not a peaceful border crossing. It creates this environment of blinding steam, immense pressure, a total loss of visibility.
And that's why Silegwe is considered a point of psychological renewal.
You can't cross this boundary carrying your old baggage. The steam will cook you alive. You have to strip everything away.
So it's a checkpoint.
Yeah.
But not the kind where you just, show your passport and wave.
No.
It sounds more like a cliff edge.
A cliff edge is a polite way to put it. It demands total transformation. If you try to hold on to your past while crossing the Gandanta, the friction just tears you apart.
Which brings us to the name itself, the embrace. Or the entwiner.
Right.
On the surface, that sounds so lovely. The embrace. It's romantic. It's safe.
And that is the trap. We have to be very careful with that word embrace here, because the symbol is the coiled serpent. And when a serpent embraces something, it's an intensity of contact that is absolute. It encircles, it restricts, it can nurture, yes, but it can also suffocate.
It makes me think of that feeling when you're so obsessed with something or someone that you just can't let go. You squeeze it tighter and tighter until
the thing you love stops breathing.
Yeah.
That is the shadow of this star.
But the light of it is the Naga.
We have to understand the deity to understand the energy. The ruling deities are the Nagas.
Nagas. Okay, help me out here. Because in a lot of Western fantasy, snake people are almost always the villains.
It's a misunderstanding of the archetype. In the ancient texts, the Nagas are, they're shape-shifting intellectual dragons.
Dragon.
They live in Nagaloka, which isn't a hell, it's another paradise, a subterranean realm filled with gems and music and pleasure.
So it's the basement of the universe, but it's a nicely furnished basement.
It's the VIP lounge of the subconscious. The Nagas have this superhuman intellect, and they guard hidden treasure.
Hidden treasures.
But think about what that means psychologically. Where do you keep your deepest secrets? Your hidden talents, your repressed memories?
Very deep down. In the dark.
Exactly. The Nagas are the custodians of the deep subconscious. To get the treasure, the wisdom, the talent, you have to face the dragon. They have a deadly venom, but they guard the gold. You can't have one without the risk of the other.
There's a myth you pointed out in our stack that really illustrates this. The churning of the ocean. It involves the king of dragons, Vasuki.
This is absolutely central to the Leia experience. The gods and demons, they wanted to extract Amrita, the nectar of immortality, from the cosmic ocean.
And to do that, they needed a rope.
A churning rope.
Yeah.
And they used Vasuki, the great serpent king. The gods pulled the tail, the demons pulled the head.
So this poor dragon is just being stretched to his absolute limit. He's the tool.
Vasuki accepted immense pain. He was pulled in these opposing directions, enduring incredible pressure. But it was only through that friction, that churning, that the nectar was produced.
And that's the life path of Ashlesha.
Often, yes. They feel pulled between the gods of their higher nature and the demons of their lower desires.
So the goal isn't just to suffer. It's not pain for pain's sake.
No, of course not. The goal is extraction, to extract the wisdom from the pressure. But, and this is the crucial part, before the nectar came out, something else did.
The poison. Hala hala.
Yes. The pressure became so great that Vasuki vomited a deadly venom that threatened the entire universe.
And this leads us to the specific power, or the Shakti, of this star.
Vishasli Shakti.
Vishasli Shakti. The power to inflict poison. I have to say, that sounds, well, it sounds malicious.
It does. It sounds that way to the uninitiated, but it's much more nuanced. This power isn't just about malice. It's the power to paralyze.
Paralyze.
To create stasis.
So, like a deer in headlights. Or is it more tactical than that?
It's tactical. Think of a patient under anesthesia. To heal a system, sometimes you have to stop it completely. You immobilize the enemy or the obstacle.
So you freeze the situation.
You freeze it so the truth can be revealed. It's a strategic tool, not just random cruelty.
Okay, let's bring this down to the cafe floor. Let's talk about the people. How does this high-concept dragon mythology actually look in a human being?
It looks like a person who is a human barometer.
A barometer. They sense the pressure.
They feel everything. I mean, you have to remember the ruler here. This star is ruled by Buddha Mercury.
The intellect, communication, data.
Right. But this star is in Cancer, the sign of the moon, which is pure emotion, instinct, water.
So you've got the sharp, analytical intellect of Mercury operating inside the watery emotional depths of the moon. That sounds like dropping a toaster in a bathtub.
It's high voltage. It creates what you could call intellectualized emotion. They don't just feel, they analyze what they feel. They analyze what you feel. They're constantly reading the room.
That sounds exhausting.
Deeply. And that's why they coil.
The coiling of the snake.
It's a defense mechanism. Because they're so vulnerable to the energy around them, they withdraw, they hide. They create this hard, secretive shell to protect that incredibly soft interior.
The sources mentioned a suspicious nature. Is that where this comes from?
Completely. If you felt every shift in someone's mood, you'd be suspicious too. You'd wonder, why did their energy just change? Are they plotting something?
They think if they don't strike first, they'll be crushed.
Exactly. It's the lock your door star. They mistrust their neighbors not because they're evil, but because they are hyper aware of the potential for danger.
And when that pressure gets too high, that's when you see the stinging tongue.
The split tongue of the Naga. When they hit sensory overload, they lash out. And because they're ruled by Mercury, they're articulate. They know exactly what to say to paralyze you. It's a reflex. It's the Bishasli Shakti used offensively to make the noise stop.
We have a really interesting breakdown of the padas here, the quarters. I want to touch on this because it shows Ashlesha isn't just one flavor, but I'm confused by the first one. It says the first pada is ruled by Sagittarius, but it brings in the energy of Aries.
It seems contradictory, doesn't it?
Right.
We're deep in the water of Cancer, yet it kicks off with fire.
Right. Why? Why start a water journey with a fire impulse?
Because the soul in that first pada realizes it's trapped in the coils. And what's the first reaction to being trapped?
Fight or flight.
It's the martial drive of Aries. I need to cut my way out. It's the pioneer, the executive, trying to conquer the emotional waters through sheer force.
They're trying to run a marathon underwater.
And that creates immense drag. They realize aggression is exhausting. So the soul moves into the second pada, Taurus energy.
The bull. Wealth, stability.
Exactly. The soul thinks, okay, fighting is too hard. Maybe if I just accumulate enough resources, enough security, I'll be safe from the water.
But money doesn't solve a spiritual knot.
No. So they move to the third pada Gemini. This is Mercury's own house. This is pure research, the secret agent phase.
This is the spy energy we were talking about.
Yes. They realize force didn't work, money didn't work, maybe knowledge will. They become obsessed with information, they dig, they research, they want the blueprint of the prison.
They want to know everyone's secrets.
And then, finally,
The fourth poda.
the fourth pada, Cancer Navamsa. The deep end of the pool. The Gandanta proper. Here, the intellect realizes it cannot think its way out. It can't buy its way out. It can't fight its way out. It has to feel its way out.
That sounds like the hardest part.
It is the point of maximum surrender. The sensitivity is at its peak. This is where the struggle to let go is the hardest, but the potential for spiritual liberation is the highest.
Speaking of that secret agent vibe, let's talk about what these people actually do. The vocation list is specific.
It is. You see strategists, naturally.
Spies.
Real spies. Or just nosy neighbors. Both metaphorically and literally. People who work in the shadows, uncovering secrets. Researchers who dig into the netherworlds of data.
I saw chemical engineers and pharmacists.
Yeah,
It goes right back to the poison cure dynamic.
Precisely. They have an innate affinity for chemicals, for drugs, for things that can kill or cure depending on the dosage. They understand how to manipulate substances.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Relationships. We talked about the snake, but there's another animal symbol. The male cat.
The yoni animal. And the male cat is the perfect metaphor for a yella in love.
I'm thinking about that. A cat is affectionate, sure. But there's that moment, every cat owner knows it, where you pet them one time too many and suddenly.
The claws come out instantaneously. That is the Io reflex. It's not malice, it's sensory overload.
Yeah.
Think about a cat. It's sleek, independent. It comes to you when it wants affection. If you chase a cat, it runs. If you sit still, it comes to your lap.
So they demand intimacy on their own terms.
Yes, and this is the paradox of the embrace all over again. They have this intense desire to merge, to be intimate, but at the same time, a terrified fear of engulfment.
They want to be held, but not trapped.
Exactly. So it's a constant negotiation of space. Come here. No, go away. No, come back.
And we should be honest, this can look like manipulation.
It can. The cat and the snake can play mind games to test your loyalty. They might withdraw just to see if you care enough to come looking for them. It's a dangerous game.
Let's shift to the physical body. Medical astrology. You can't hold that much tension in your mind without it eventually leaking into the body.
It always somaticizes. Always. And in Shiel, it attacks the wiring. The nervous system is the primary weak point.
Because of that high voltage Mercury influence.
The nerves are constantly frying. They suffer from nervous overload, anxiety, insomnia. But the texts also mention the joints.
Joints, like knees and elbows.
Yes. What is a joint? It's a connector. It's where two bones embrace. It's a knot in the body. The physical joints often bear the burden of the psychological tension.
There's a striking note in the medical texts. It says, Advia ailments often require 100 physicians.
Which is a poetic way of saying the doctors are baffled.
Why? Is the patient just complicated?
It's because the root cause is hidden. Just like the naga in its hole, the illness hides in the psychosomatic layers. The symptoms shift. They shapeshift. One day it's a migraine, the next it's a stomach issue. Doctors treat the symptom, but they miss the source, which is the coiled energy in the psyche.
So if you are carrying this energy, or you know someone who is, what is the way out? How do you cure the poison?
That's the great work, the transition from entanglement to liberation. And the prescription is surprisingly simple, yet incredibly difficult.
What is it?
Mauna.
Mauna.
Silence.
Total, absolute silence.
That sounds like torture for a Mercury-ruled sign. Mercury loves data, it loves to talk.
Which is exactly why it is the cure. The nervous system is constantly vibrating with the noise of the world. To uncoil, they have to stop the input. They need to retreat into the cave, not to hide, but to quiet the static so they can finally hear their own soul. Sensory deprivation as therapy.
It is resetting the barometer.
And there's a mantra mentioned as well.
Osarpa Devaya Nama.
Osarpa Devaya Nama.
It's a tool for submission. You're bowing to the serpent god. You're acknowledging the energy, not fighting it. You're saying, I see the coil, I respect the power, but I am not the venom.
The alchemy.
The alchemy is the shedding of the skin. The pain of Ashlesha is holding on to grudges, to past versions of themselves, to people who've left. The cure is the ruthless letting go. They have to allow the old identity to die.
A death and rebirth process.
It is. Transforming the poison of the ego, that suspicion, that manipulation into the nectar of wisdom. When an Ashlesha native stops using their insight to protect themselves and starts using it to understand the world, they become profound mystics.
Healers who can handle the deadliest poisons and turn them into medicine.
Because they know the anatomy of the poison better than anyone. They've survived it. They know the dosage.
So what does this all mean for us? Whether we have this star prominently or not?
It means we all have a coil we're protecting. We all have a threshold where our embrace turns into suffocation. Ashlesha teaches us that sometimes the thing we are clinging to is the very thing that is poisoning us.
And letting go feels like dying.
But it's actually the only way to breathe, the only way to find the nectar.
We've covered a lot. The hydrology of the hydra, the psychology of the cat, the alchemy of the poison. It's a lot to sit with.
It is the deep end of the ocean.
I want to leave you with one final thought from the stack. It's something that really stuck with me.
Only those who are brave enough to hold the poison can eventually find the cure.
Yes, it connects to that Naga ambition, to rule the netherworld. But maybe the real ambition isn't to rule the demons under the earth, but to master the demons in our own subconscious, to look the dragon in the eye and realize it's just guarding a gem that belongs to you.